must behave according to scientific laws too, which means I can take a classroom of students like this, give you the same textbook, the same lecture, in a room with the same temperature, the same air pressure, and all of you are going to make the same grade all the time. Is that science? Hardly. You won't. Well, you can take a cake, mix the same ingredients, and put the cake in the oven and heat it to the same temperatures, and all these cakes will turn out alike. This Cascade Hostess Twinkies cake maker will all turn out alike. I mean, that's science. But human beings do not seem to conform to scientific behaviors. Anyway, Adam Smith wrote The Science of Man, and he's famous for his philosophy is laissez-faire. Wrote Wealth of Nations, that's a book, but now you might notice I've put this in cursive writing. Why did I do that? Anybody know why I write this in cursive instead of print?
It's French.
It's a foreign word. We're borrowing a non-English word, L-A-I-S-S-E-Z-F-A-I-R-E. We're borrowing two non-English words from another language.
Doesn't it mean like laid back?
Very, yeah. How many of you have studied French? All right, one or two, yeah. It means, among other, well, in Adam Smith's case, he said it means the government should keep its hands off business and let business run itself. Yeah, laid back is the excellent term. The government, yeah, laissez-faire. Now, laissez-faire was challenged 100 years later after Adam Smith by some philosophers who believed in socialism. Most notably, Charles Darwin believed that the government should own and control all business. Socialism is the opposite of laissez-faire. Laissez-faire, the government keeps its hands off of business. Socialism, the government collects all the profits and redistributes them equally. In other words, all the farm produce, you turn it all into the government. All that the factories produce, turn it all into the government. All the money you make, turn it into the government, and the government redistributes it all evenly. That's socialism. Under laissez-faire, I grant you, folks, some people will earn more than others. Some people become richer than others, and some people are left out. We'll have more to say about that when we come to Darwin. Not Darwin, Marx. Karl Marx, socialism, Engels. All right. So are there still any test books out? I mean, test sheets and take those up now. Okay. What about your scan? Do you have a scan? I definitely want to scan. I might wind up using things again. All right. Hey, it's hard to make up these tests, folks, really. And sometimes they get, for lack of a better word, I'll say sometimes they get compromised. Again, that's putting it the nicest way I can. All right. Adam Smith. Again, espoused the philosophy that government should keep its hands off business. Now, some of the later, there was an earlier Enlightenment, then a later Enlightenment, and one of the later Enlightenment figures was a man named Rousseau. Rousseau is famous for his philosophy of the general will. Now, folk, I've been told that I'm opinionated, but there's some times when I come across some of these philosophers I've just got to state, hey, there's some things about him I quite frankly don't like. Now, here's the thing about the general will. Rousseau believed that everybody should try to figure out what is the majority of people believing, then you believe that. How is the majority of people dressing? Will you dress that way? How are the majority of people, what's their political leanings? You do that way. And he believed that freedom would only come about when we all believed alike and thought alike. And then the question, well, what if somebody wants to be different from anybody else? Rousseau said this person should be forced to be free. Now, folk, to me, this is what's called an oxymoron. Now, if you're forced, you aren't free. Now, if you're free, you can't be forced. So how can you be forced to be free? An oxymoron is like a truthful liar, an honest thief. You can't be, now, and something else that I think is seriously wrong with his philosophy, all the great scientific discoveries have been made by people who, who disagree with the norm. You have to have men and women who will step forward and say, hey, the norm is wrong. The norm is wrong. I disagree. I dissent. I protest. And oftentimes these protesters and dissenters have become some of the greatest minds of all time. Disagree with the general will. Hey, the Wright brothers, there was a common expression at that time. Why, a person could no more do that than fly. It's an expression you probably have never heard. It's an expression you don't use anymore. The Wright brothers flew. They disagreed with the norm. All right. Anyway, I want to say this about philosophers. We in America tend to not, I mean those of us who are American, tend to not follow the philosophers like Europeans do. Europeans will set up some men whom they consider great, and they have more than Americans followed these philosophers. Now Europeans don't do that as much as they once did, but most of your philosophers that we read about came from Europe, because the American philosopher never made much headway. There were some, of course, but they didn't make much headway. Anyway, forced to be free, abide by the general will. The very opposite of this was said by a man whose name almost rhymes with Rousseau, Henry David Thoreau. Now, Thoreau was an American. He was an Enlightenment philosopher, well, actually he was a Romantic philosopher. But he said, and I quote, "He who would be a man must be a nonconformist." The very opposite of Rousseau. Rousseau said to be happy, everybody must follow the general will. Nobody have their own opinions. Thoreau said if you want to be a man, the general will is going to pot and ruin, you've got to go the opposite way. Anybody know how to make money in the stock market? When the stock market's going up, 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 what do you do? When the stock market's going down, 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 you've got to go the opposite. And we've seen that demonstrated this year already. The market went way down early last week, way down. If you had bought land, you'd be a lot richer. When the market's going down, everybody is getting out. If you're wise, you go the opposite, the way the crowd is going. You get in. When the market's just shooting up, you stay on the sidelines a while or go short. Prepare to go short, because sooner or later these up markets are going to reverse. Go the opposite. All right, so much for Rousseau. Now, your book takes up the question of women, and particularly the name Mary Wollstonecraft, who's been called the founder of modern feminism. She tried to say that women were equal to men and women could join scientific clubs the same way men could. She was denied entry into some scientific clubs because of the fact that she was female. A lot of Enlightenment philosophers did not agree with her, including Rousseau.